What's stopping the Trump administration from using the government shutdown against thousands of government workers? A San Francisco judge is stopping them, standing up against the Trump administration. So let's analyze just what that judge is doing and what it means. But first, quick reminder, hit that subscribe button, make us the biggest as well as the best legal analysis channel and political analysis channel that there is. So hit that button for us. Judge Susan Ilston, a Clinton appointee, granted a preliminary injunction building on her temporary restraining order, or TRO, that stops the Trump administration from carrying out the RIF's reduction in force of some 4,000 workers. Now, it extended the effect of her TRO, and let's recall our TRO and PI standards. TRO's temporary restraining order, PI preliminary injunction standards, they are the same. You need irreparable harm, you need a likelihood of success on the merits, some other things, but those are the two crucial elements, and they are the same. A TRO is temporary, meant to freeze things until there's time to sort it out, time to fully brief the matter, time for a hearing, perhaps with live witnesses, so the court can make a more informed decision at this early stage. But importantly, the standards are the same because these are early on. You have to make some predictions about what is the possible harm, what's the possible legal outcome, and both will stay in place while litigation continues. Right now, we don't have the written order yet, but that's forthcoming because the judge ruled from the bench. Perhaps that was because the Trump DOJ lawyers' arguments were so underwhelming, even though they had 2 weeks to improve from their loss at the TRO hearing, which was 2 weeks ago. Didn't make much of a difference for those 2 weeks, maybe because they don't really have any better legal arguments. No real legal justification for their trying to use the government shutdown to further their anti-government agenda, or perhaps better put, anti-human agenda. So the judge said in the hearing on Tuesday that the illegality, which accounts for the likelihood of success on the merits for the plaintiffs, the employees, is that the driving force of these RIFs has been, quote, political retribution. And that's key because that's not a valid reason for the RIFs. And what really struck me here is the real human cost that this judge, this court, listened to. Among the ways that this evidence was given to the judge was some declarations by actually affected federal employees. And we'll put up one here, some excerpts from it on page 1, second paragraph. She lets us know she's an equal opportunity specialist in the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD. She's had this position for 5 years, and she's a member of the National Federation of Federal Employees, the union. Before our government shut down, our department was already understaffed. Since the beginning of the Trump administration, we have gone from 8 intake employees, which was barely enough to keep up with our caseload, to only 4. Next, paragraph 7. Everyone in the San Francisco regional office also received a RIF notice. This means that there is no one left to process and investigate complaints of Fair Housing Act violations arising out of Arizona, American Samoa, California, Guam, Hawaii, or Nevada. Now, my opinion, Trump administration could care less about anyone being treated unfairly in terms of housing. They don't care because they've never had to worry about housing, making their mortgage payments or making the rent. Could care less about folks who have to do that. Paragraph 9. The RIF has also left me with no way to pay my rent and other bills. I currently live with my partner who was laid off 2 weeks before the shutdown. During the shutdown, we've taken some short-term measures to handle our expenses. I've dipped into my savings and my partner has taken out loans, but if I lose my job entirely, I'm worried I will have to take more drastic measures like borrowing against my retirement fund or withdrawing the fund entirely and incurring a penalty. After that runs out, I have no idea how we will pay for necessities like housing. Without any income, we won't be able to pay down the credit card and medical debt that we already have. To say that I'm stressed about our financial situation is an understatement. She goes on. 10. I'm also extremely worried about my health insurance coverage. I was previously insured through my partner's insurance, which I lost when he was laid off. Prior to the shutdown, I'd begun the process of getting insurance through my job. Now that I'm being RIFed, that will no longer be a possibility for me. She's going to try to get coverage through Medicaid. There'll be a lapse in the coverage. She says, in the meantime, I won't be able to access medications to treat my anxiety, depression, ADHD, and prediabetes. I'm especially concerned because the medication I take for my depression could have serious side effects if I were to suddenly stop taking that. Paragraph 11. Because the RIF happened during a shutdown, I also won't be able to access unemployment benefits. HUD currently isn't answering any requests for employment information, which is necessary for the state to approve my request for unemployment benefits. Because of the shutdown, I have not been able to get any information about whether I'm eligible for severance, and if so, how much I would receive. I feel like I'm totally on my own, without anyone from HUD to guide me through this. Next page, 13, paragraph 13. I've worked in the government for a long time. Prior to my current job, I worked at the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and before that, I was in the United States Air Force. During all that time, including during my combat deployment, I have never gone through anything as traumatizing as what I am now experiencing. That's a single government worker, just one, brave enough to come forward and show her vulnerabilities, her fears, and you can read between the lines of the hopes and dreams and worries real people have every day. This is the kind of person that Russell Vought, who wrote Project 2025 and is now the director of the Office of Management and Budget, this is the kind of person that Vought wants to terrorize. His own words, quote, "When they wake up in the morning, we want them to not want to go to work because they are increasingly viewed as the villains. We want to put them in trauma." That's Vought talking about the government employees he is now in charge of in an agency that's supposed to manage the government. This district court judge has the right analysis of harm, focusing on human beings, as opposed to what the Supreme Court tends to focus on, which is whenever they have these tests of Trump's ridiculous abuses, extensions of executive authority, the Supreme Court is so worried about harm. But they're worried about harm to the executive authority. Here you have another great example of a judge at a trial court level who actually understands that the real harm that you need to look at is the harm to human beings, not some lofty notion of how the executive branch should work. It's humans, not concepts and theories, that ought to count. Now, little side note here, take a look at the background of this particular judge, who's now actually on senior status. She comes from a particular law firm. We'll put something up here for you to look at that firm. And they have a history, and on their website, they say that their history is they take cases involving only just principles or causes. They have a very sophisticated nationwide practice, but the point of this is twofold. First, very admirable that they want to take on righteous cases. She comes from that kind of a firm, tells you something about her character. And it indicates she had real litigation experience. She worked on real court cases with real people in real disputes, not just concepts and theory. And that's what is too often missing from the Supreme Court conservative majority. Some of them have some legal practice experience. I'll give them that. Particularly Gorsuch used to practice in the firm where I once worked. But the question is, when you see where he's a bit more focused on human beings, maybe that comes from the experience of actually having worked with human beings about their issues and their cases. Now, turning to the likelihood of success on merits, Exhibit 1 in favor of the plaintiffs against the government is that the DOJ wants to argue this is part of legitimate executive ability. The court shouldn't intrude upon it. But as usual, Trump's big mouth is exhibit number 1, because he has said that he wants to use the shutdown to target Democrat agencies, quote unquote. Gee, which ones are those? Aren't all these agencies of the American people, the American government? So Trump DOJ continues to fail spectacularly in the lower courts, embarrassingly so. And when it gets to the Supreme Court, which it will, we will see if those conservative folks remember that the government is for the people, not for political parties. So we'll keep an eye on that. All right, talk to you soon.
Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.